Most people believe that wisdom is a reward for intelligence. That if you read enough books, earn enough degrees, or accumulate enough life experiences, you will eventually become wise. But they are dead wrong. In fact, some of the most intelligent people on this planet are the ones who make the most catastrophic mistakes. Why? Because wisdom has almost nothing to do with how you think. It's about how you react when you don't have time to think. There is a razor-thin line between a genius and a fool, and it isn't measured by IQ. It's measured in milliseconds. It's measured by your reflexes. We often confuse the ability to process information with the ability to navigate life. But in the heat of a crisis, your processing speed doesn't matter if your direction is wrong. This is the hidden architecture of human behavior that most people ignore until it's too late. Imagine a world where your every move is calculated not by your logic, but by a hidden operating system running in the background of your mind. That is what we are going to hack today. We are going to look at why your brilliance is failing you and how to rebuild your soul from the ground up, one reflex at a time. Look around you. You've seen them. The high-level executive who ruins a 20-year career over one impulsive, angry email. The brilliant student who can solve complex calculus but can't manage a simple disagreement with a partner without burning the bridge down. We've been taught that logic is our greatest tool. But logic is slow. Logic is a luxury of the calm. When the pressure is on, when the adrenaline hits, your intelligence goes offline. What remains? Your reflexes. Wisdom at its deepest level is not a thought process, it is a trained response. If you have to struggle with yourself to remain calm, you haven't mastered wisdom yet, you are just performing it. True wisdom is when the right reaction happens automatically, without effort. Consider the smart person who enters an argument. They have all the facts, they have the data, they have the logic on their side. But as soon as their ego is bruised, their logic vanishes. They start shouting, they say things they'll regret in an hour. Their intelligence didn't save them. In fact, their intelligence made them more dangerous because it gave them better weapons to hurt the person they love. The illusion of intelligence is the belief that knowing what to do is the same as being able to do it. You can know that smoking is bad for you, but that doesn't stop the reflex to reach for a cigarette when you're stressed. You can know that shouting is counterproductive, but that doesn't stop the scream from leaving your throat. Wisdom is the bridge between knowing and doing, and that bridge is built of reflexes. To understand this, we have to look at the amygdala, the ancient part of your brain designed for survival. When you perceive a threat, be it a physical lion or a passive-aggressive comment from your boss, the amygdala triggers a hijack. It bypasses your prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic, and forces you into a reflex. For most people, that reflex is survival-based: attack, defend, or hide. This is where smart people do stupid things. They aren't being stupid, they are being hijacked by untrained reflexes. The human brain is an efficiency machine. It doesn't want to spend energy thinking if it doesn't have to. Thinking is expensive. It burns glucose. It takes time. Reflexes, on the other hand, are cheap and fast. They are hardwired circuits. When you were a child, you learned certain reflexes to survive your environment. Maybe you learned that to get attention, you had to be loud. Maybe you learned that to stay safe, you had to be invisible. These were survival reflexes. But you are no longer in that environment, yet the circuit is still there. When your partner criticizes your choice of dinner, your amygdala doesn't see a conversation, it sees an attack. It triggers the same circuit you used as a 10-year-old. You react with a reflex that is 20 years out of date. This is why we feel like we are losing control. We aren't losing control, we are simply watching an old program run. The neuroscience of wisdom is the process of manually overriding these ancient circuits and installing new, modern ones. It is the literal physical restructuring of your brain matter. We call it neuroplasticity, but in the context of this video, we call it the training of the soul.
There is a concept in elite performance, from Navy SEALs to concert pianists, that it takes approximately 2,500 repetitions of a specific movement for it to become a biological reflex. Think about when you first learned to drive. You had to think about everything. Where is the brake? How much pressure do I apply? Watch the mirror, check the blind spot. Your brain was working overtime. You were thinking your way through driving. Now, you drive home and don't even remember the journey. Your hands and feet move in a perfect silent dance. You have achieved reflexive competence. Wisdom works exactly the same way. If you want to be wise, you don't need to read more, you need to drill more. You need to repeat the correct reaction to small irritations until it becomes your default setting. 2,500 times. It sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But think about how many small irritations you face in a single day. The slow internet, the cold coffee, the annoying notification. Each of these is a rep. If you use every minor inconvenience as a training ground for your new reflex, you aren't just getting through the day, you are building a masterpiece. You are a sculptor, and these small moments are the chisel marks. Most people waste their reps. They spend their 2,500 reps practicing anger, they practice impatience, they practice being offended, and then they wonder why they are angry, impatient, and offended all the time. They've become world-class experts at misery because they've done the reps. Wisdom is simply choosing to do the reps for something else. The uncomfortable truth is, sometimes knowing too much makes you dunger. This is the paradox of knowledge. When we accumulate vast amounts of information, we develop a filter of certainty. We start to believe we've seen this before. We stop observing reality as it is and start observing our theories about reality. A wise person is someone who can maintain a beginner's mind despite having a master's knowledge. They understand that the moment you think you know everything about a person or a situation, you have closed the door to the very information that could save you from a mistake. In the US market, we value experts, but in the market of life, the expert is often the first one to walk into a trap because they stopped looking at the ground. They're looking at their map while reality has changed the terrain. Think about the most successful people you know. Often they reached a certain level and then stopped growing. They became captured by their own success. They started to believe that the reflexes that got them to level 10 would get them to level 100. But the paradox of knowledge dictates that what you know is often the biggest obstacle to what you need to learn next. To stay wise, you must be willing to burn your old maps. You must be willing to say, "I was wrong," or even harder, "I don't know anymore." This is not a sign of weakness, it is the ultimate sign of intellectual strength. But there is one specific type of knowing that is actually a trap that even the most successful CEOs fall into. I call it the experience ghost. The experience ghost is the haunting of your past failures and successes. It whispers in your ear that this is just like 2008, or this person is just like my ex-business partner. While experience is valuable, the ghost makes you reactive instead of responsive. It forces you to fight a battle that ended 10 years ago. Wise people don't ignore their experience, but they don't let it drive. They use experience as a reference library, not as a script. When you encounter a new problem, ask yourself, am I seeing this situation for what it is, or am I seeing it through the ghost of what happened before? The experience ghost loves to create false reflexes. These are defensive moves we make to protect ourselves from ghosts. We stop trusting new people because one person lied. We stop taking risks because one investment failed. We think we are being wise, but we are actually being traumatized. Wisdom is the ability to walk into the fire of a new situation without the wet blanket of past trauma. So, how do we build these reflexes? We start in the smallest laboratory in the world, the gap between a stimulus and your response. Next time you receive a text that makes your blood boil, next time someone cuts you off in traffic, next time you feel the urge to correct someone just to prove you're right, stop. Count to 10, not in your head, but in your breath. One deep inhale, one slow exhale. You aren't just waiting. You are physically preventing the amygdala hijack. You are training your nervous system that stress does not equal action. If you do this 20 times a day, you are hitting that 2,500 rep mark in less than 5 months. By then, calmness isn't something you try to do. It's who you are. Let's break down the 10-second laboratory. Seconds 1 to 3. Physical awareness. Feel the heat in your chest. Feel the tightness in your jaw. Seconds 4 to 6. The breath. This is the manual override. By controlling your breath, you send a signal to your brain that there is no lion. You are safe. Seconds 7 to 10. The choice. Now that the logic brain is back online, ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be in this moment? It happens in 10 seconds. Its value is infinite. The most dangerous moment in any human's life is the moment they are afraid to say, I don't know. Stupidity is often just a mask for insecurity. We guess, we pretend, we assume, and then we build entire lives on top of those assumptions. Wisdom is the courage to be empty, to admit that your current knowledge is insufficient. Consider the difference between a dialogue and a debate. In a debate, the reflex is to win. In a dialogue, the reflex is to understand. The thin line between wisdom and stupidity is often just the presence of curiosity. Stupidity is certain. Wisdom is curious. Stupidity thinks it has arrived. Wisdom knows it is still traveling. If you want to be the wisest person in the room, stop trying to be the smartest. Start being the most curious. Ask the questions everyone else is too embarrassed to ask. Admit the gaps in your logic. This transparency is a superpower. It makes you unhackable because there is no ego for someone to grip onto. Gratitude is not a feeling, it is a tactical advantage. When you train your brain to reflexively find the value in a setback, you become unfuckwithable. Not because life is easy, but because your reflex is to build, not to break. Imagine you lose your job. The untrained reflex is, I'm a failure, life is unfair. The gratitude reflex is, this is a forced redirection. What skills did I gain there? What was I tolerating that I no longer have to? This isn't toxic positivity, it's strategic assessment. Gratitude is the ability to process raw data, a setback, and turn it into fuel, an opportunity. If you practice this reflex 2,500 times, you become an alchemist. You can take the lead of a bad situation and turn it into the gold of a new beginning. A person with a gratitude reflex is the most dangerous person in the world to fate, because no matter what fate throws at them, they find a way to use it. We must talk about the environment. You cannot build a reflex for peace in an environment of chaos. If your phone is constantly buzzing with notifications, you are training your brain for interruption reflexes. You are training yourself to be reactive. Wisdom requires silence. It requires spaces where nothing is demanding your attention. In these spaces, you can observe your own mind. Deep rewiring happens when you deliberately remove the stimuli that trigger your old, bad reflexes. Turn off the notifications. Delete the apps that make you angry. Stop talking to the people who enjoy your drama. You are a guardian of your own nervous system. If you don't protect it, who will? Wisdom is as much about what you stop doing as what you start doing. It is the pruning of the dead branches so the tree can finally grow. Mastery is the final stage. It is when your reflexes are so aligned with your values that you no longer feel like you are choosing to be wise. You just are. When someone insults you and you find yourself feeling pity for them instead of anger, that is mastery. When you fail at something big and your first thought is, okay, what's the lesson? Instead of, I'm a loser, that is mastery. Mastery is the silent boundary where you stop fighting yourself. The war inside your head ends. And in that silence, you find a level of power you never knew existed. It is the power of the mountain. The mountain doesn't react to the storm, it simply stands. By training your reflexes, you are becoming that mountain. People will look to you. They will wonder how you stay so steady. They will think you are special, but you will know the truth. You just did the reps. Wisdom isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's the 2,501st repetition. You don't need to be a different person. You just need different reflexes. If you've ever lost something valuable, a relationship, an opportunity, or your peace of mind because of a split-second reaction you regret, let me know in the comments. Let's talk about how we're rewiring our reflexes together. And if you want to master the science of human behavior and high-performance living, hit the subscribe button. We are just getting started. Your life is the sum of your reactions. Choose them wisely. I'll see you in the next one.